All right, let's dive into one of history's most powerful short stories. It's an incredible tale of loss, loyalty, and legacy, and it all takes place during a really chaotic and uncertain time in ancient Israel, a period known as the time of the Judges.
So here's the central puzzle we're going to unpack today. How on earth does a total outsider, a widow from a rival nation no less, end up in the direct family line of the legendary King David? Well, the answer is an absolutely incredible journey that all starts with a family in crisis.
Okay, so our story kicks off with a family from Bethlehem. A really bad famine hits the land, forcing a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons to pack up everything and flee to the neighboring country of Moab for a chance to survive. Now, what they thought would be a short trip turns into a whole decade of just one tragedy after another. First, Naomi's husband, Elimelech, dies. A little while later, her two sons, who had since married local Moabite women, also die. In just 10 years, Naomi is left all alone, a widow without her sons and stranded in a foreign land. You can just feel her devastation, right? Naomi is completely shattered. She feels so cursed by God that when she finally makes her way back home, she tells everyone, "Don't call me Naomi," which means pleasant. She says, "Call me Mara," which means bitter, because the Lord's hand is turned against her. She left full, and now she has come back completely empty.
So, after hearing the famine back home is finally over, Naomi decides it's time to return to Bethlehem. But it's a long, hard journey, and she turns to her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, and begs them to go back to their own families in Moab, where they'd have a real chance at finding new husbands and some security.
And this is a real fork-in-the-road moment. Orpah makes the sensible, logical choice. It's heartbreaking, but she kisses Naomi goodbye and heads back home. But Ruth does something completely radical. She just refuses to leave. She clings to Naomi. And what Ruth says next? Wow. It's the turning point of the entire story. She makes this unbelievably powerful promise of loyalty, tying her own fate completely to her broke, widowed mother-in-law. Think about it. She's choosing Naomi's people, Naomi's culture, and even Naomi's God, leaving behind literally everything and everyone she has ever known. So the two women finally arrive in Bethlehem with absolutely nothing, right as the barley harvest is getting started. They have no way to support themselves, but Ruth, she immediately steps up to try and provide for them both. So what does she do? Ruth decides to go gleaning. This was basically an ancient social safety net written into Israelite law. It allowed the poor, widows, and foreigners to walk behind the official harvesters and pick up any grain they left behind. I mean, it was hard, backbreaking work, but hey, it was their only shot at survival.
And as luck, or, maybe something else, would have it, Ruth just happens to end up in a field owned by a man named Boaz. Now, Boaz isn't just some random rich guy. He's actually a relative of Naomi's late husband. And what's more, he's already heard stories about Ruth's incredible loyalty to Naomi. He's so impressed that he immediately offers her protection and even tells his workers to leave extra grain for her to find. Now, to give you an idea of just how kind this was, Ruth comes home that night with almost 30 pounds of barley. 30 pounds! From one day of gleaning. That's an absolutely astonishing amount. When Naomi sees it, she knows something special must have happened, and immediately asks, "Whose field were you in?" The second Ruth says the name Boaz, you can almost see the gears turning in Naomi's head. It's like a tiny spark of hope ignites for the first time in a decade. She exclaims that Boaz is one of their guardian redeemers, and that one little phrase changes absolutely everything. A daring plan starts to form in Naomi's mind. Everything that happens next, the entire future for these two women, now hinges on this one ancient legal and family custom, the duty of the guardian redeemer.
So, what in the world is a goel, or a guardian redeemer? Well, think of it like this. It was a male relative who was responsible for looking out for the rest of the extended family. If a family member fell on hard times and had to sell their land, the guardian redeemer was supposed to buy it back. And, this is key, if a man died without a son, the redeemer could marry his widow to make sure the family line didn't die out. So Naomi cooks up this incredibly bold, high-stakes plan. She tells Ruth, "Clean up, put on your best clothes, and go to the threshing floor tonight where Boaz is celebrating the harvest. Her instructions are to wait until he's asleep, then go and quietly lie down at his feet." Now, this sounds really strange to us, but it was a powerful, symbolic way of asking Boaz to step up and fulfill his role as her guardian redeemer. So in the middle of the night, Boaz wakes up and he's totally startled to find a woman at his feet.
Ruth explains who she is and formally makes her request. Boaz is just floored. He's so moved, and he praises her incredible character. But then, a complication. He tells her that while he is a relative, there's actually another man who's a closer relative, and he has the first right of refusal.
You know, this is where we really see what kind of man Boaz is. He's a man of action and honor. He promises Ruth he'll take care of it, publicly and legally, first thing in the morning. So he goes right to the town gate, which was basically the ancient equivalent of a courtroom and a city hall all in one.
And watch this, because Boaz is so clever here, he gets the town elders as witnesses and presents the case to the other relative. First, he just offers him the chance to buy Naomi's land. The guy says, "Sure, I'll take it." Then Boaz drops the other shoe. By the way, buying the land also means you have to marry Ruth. And suddenly, the other guy backs out, worried it'll mess up his own inheritance. Just like that, Boaz is free to step in. They seal the deal with this ancient custom of exchanging a sandal, kind of like shaking hands on it.
So, with all the legal stuff settled, the path is finally clear. This incredible story that started with so much emptiness and bitterness is about to come full circle.
Boaz marries Ruth, the foreign widow from Moab. The woman who came to town with nothing is now given a home, security, and a future. And very soon, she gives birth to a son, which is the ultimate fulfillment of that guardian redeemer role. The family line will continue.
And this is just such a beautiful moment for Naomi. The woman who started the story bitter and empty now holds her own grandson. The women of the town all gather around and recognize Ruth's incredible loyalty, saying that she is better to Naomi than 7 sons. Her bitterness is completely gone, replaced by joy.
And this is the stunning finale. This is where this small-town story connects to something so much bigger. The son of Ruth and Boaz is named Obed. Obed grows up and has a son named Jesse. And Jesse, he becomes the father of David, Israel's most beloved and greatest king. A story that began with famine and death ends by establishing the direct ancestral line of the king himself. And that brings us right back to where we started. A Moabite widow, through one radical act of faithfulness to her mother-in-law, becomes a cornerstone of history. It really leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? What seemingly small acts of kindness and loyalty today might be shaping a future that we can't even begin to imagine.